Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at what is quite a well-known Greek wine within Greece, certainly. This is Tsantali Rapsani Reserve, and it's the 2016 vintage of that. The village of Rapsani, which gives its name to the appellation, is or was one of the first appellations established in Greece back in 1971. It's a village that's on the southeastern slopes of Mount Athos, and the vines here are between 250 and 750 metres above sea level, meaning that you have the influence both of altitude, giving cooling effects, and the nearby sea, also moderating the Mediterranean climate that they have. The wines here have to be made from a 1/3 each blend of three grape varieties. Firstly, Xinomavro, one of the really well-known Greek grape varieties, and then Krassato and Stavroto. Two varieties I have to admit I'm not hugely familiar with. Anyway, they're blended. They have to be 1/3 each of these wines, and the wines are often aged in barrel to soften them a bit. Tsantali, a fair-sized company. The family traced their winemaking back to 1890, but it wasn't actually until the late 30s and mid-40s that Evangelos Tsantalis really gave the company a boost, both in the areas of distilling and in winemaking, and they now actually have vineyards in a number of the prime regions throughout Greece. So as well as Rapsani, they also have vineyards on Mount Athos, they have vineyards up in Naoussa, they have vineyards in Halkidiki, and they have vineyards in Maronia, and probably others as well. They're a fair-sized operation. They're also one of the largest organic producers in Greece, although I don't note this as actually claiming to be an organic wine, so I'm not sure whether we can claim that or not. So as an appellation, Rapsani fell into decline during the 80s during a period of economic downturn, and it was in 1991 when Tsantali decided to plant vineyards there that the appellation was revived, and today is a relatively thriving PDO region. Tsantali's vines they don't go all the way up to the 750 metre level, but they have vines between 250 and 500 metres above sea level. They've got about 90 hectares of vines, so a fair size. And there's a mixture of field blends and varietally planted lots. Some of the vines are on trellises and others are on bush vines. So there's a variety of ways in which these are farmed. The vineyards here are on clay loam soils over a schistous subsoil, giving some quite good drainage, and yet the clay providing some water retention when necessary. The wines are hand-picked, the grapes hand-picked. They ferment in open concrete fermenters, and the approach is to get really soft extraction. So fermentation lasts for about 8 to 10 days, and during that period, 2 or 3 times a day, the cap of skins is pushed back down into the fermenting juice. The wine ages in oak. They're not looking for a lot of oak influence, so the barrels are 300 litre barrels, so slightly larger than you get in Bordeaux. Also, to reduce the oak influence, only 40% of them are new, and the balance are first and second year barrels. And the wine will age in those for about 12 months. It undergoes malolactic conversion, so quite straightforward sort of winemaking, really. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? Firstly, looking at it colour-wise, you've got quite a darkly pigmented ruby red, and yet the depth is not enormous, to be honest. It's quite a it has a pale aspect to it. Swirling it, nothing particular to report. I mean, there is a slight formation of tears there. The aromas are really quite restrained. They're savoury, spicy, but the fruit is really quite sort of closed in on itself. What you're getting, there are peppery notes, there are what I assume are oak notes, there are meaty notes, there are dusty notes. Behind all that, there's a sort of a really sort of lifted, almost a sort of a floral perfume. The aromas are quite like a Barolo. There's this high-toned, lifted, almost rose petal note of a perfume, and then behind that there's an anise, a bitter licorice note. It smells quite elegant. Let's have a taste. Gosh, stylistically, also like a Barolo, quite fresh acidity. There's a real liveliness to that. There's quite fine fruit. It's a lifted sort of slightly savoury fruit, and yet you've got a sort of a red cherry note, and you've got that lovely sort of perfumed rose petal note over the top, and yet at the same time there's also there's a peppery spice, there's a cedary spice coming from the oak, cedar, maybe a tiny touch of cinnamon, not a vast amount. And yet there are slightly rustic, meaty notes to the whole thing as well. Coming back to the aromas, yes, it doesn't just remind me of Barolo, also the aroma's slightly like a sort of a Northern Rhone Syrah, so that would suggest that there might be a tiny touch of Brettanomyces, but I don't actually think that's right. But there is that sort of almost bacon note, quite savoury meatiness. The tannins are very fine. They're quite firm, they're quite drying, there's an astringency to the back palate. This is a wine to partner with food, very definitely. You could see it going very well with rich meat like sort of venison or ostrich or something like that, really cutting through. Also, its acidity is such that with tomato dishes that would work really nicely, and I guess that's a major feature of Greek culture. So yeah, quite a traditional style of Greek red, but actually really showing lovely liveliness because of its good acidity. Probably an ability to age for a few years because of its structure, but actually, as long as you're eating it with food, it doesn't need to, because you don't want to soften those tannins out anymore, because that would go very nicely against lamb or something like that. I'm thinking of Kefalonia meat pie or something that would be a beautiful pairing with. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you find the video interesting. Do please follow our YouTube channel. Do like, share, and leave us some comments. We'd love to hear from you. But most importantly, do join us again, won't you? Bye now.